Bible this morning, I'd like to invite you to open it to the book of 1 Corinthians, chapter 9. With me there. Let's see. We used to have a dog named Sarge. Sarge was a really smart dog. He was a black and white poodle. And I picked him up when I used to work selling insurance years ago, and a lady that was kind of a rescue for dogs, and she had him. Somebody moved off and left him tied to a tree. He looked like a sheepdog. His hair was so long, and she couldn't find a home for him. She trained healing dogs. Yeah. And thanks, Tim. I keep forgetting to put that on. I knew I hit the switch, and why is this not working? See, I'm unused to wearing it now. So it used to hurt. Now my ears have got calloused, and it doesn't hurt anymore. But so Sarge was a really smart dog, and we'd built a house, and we'd bought the house already started, and we'd finished it. And off the front of this house there was a deck, there was a patio, a deck, and another deck above it. It was an A-frame, so it was really big. But around the front, I think the original guy that was building it intended to go all the way down to the pond, and he had built like a walkway out, and it just ended. There was no rail. There was just rails down the side, but it just ended. And you could walk off, and it was like 13, 14 feet to the ground. And so it was kind of dangerous. And we also had a half lab, half Rottweiler who loved to fetch. And so I was on the deck one day with a tennis ball, and the lab and Rottweiler was down on the ground, and I was bouncing, and I started to throw it. And about the time I let it go, I heard Tennis say, "No!" And that little poodle was on the deck with me, and he ran and jumped. And it was like 13 feet at the bottom, then it just dropped. And he hit the ground, rolled about 3 or 4 times, and got up and kind of shook his head and went on about his business. I couldn't believe it. I thought I was going to kill him. But the reason I'm telling you this story is he was a really smart dog. He just made a really bad decision. He shouldn't have jumped, but he did. So who wants to go run a 5K with me this afternoon? Who wants to go run a 5K with me? Anybody want to go run a 5K? Is anybody prepared to run a 5K besides Brent? Huh? You'll walk it? Why would you walk and not run it? Because we're not prepared. I'd probably 100 yards, I'd be like gasping for air. But my knees would be killing me already. But so we wouldn't be prepared to go do it. But if I said, all right, look, in 3 months, we're going to go run a 5K, and if we run this 5K, at the end of this, we'll get $5,000. Most of y'all would say, who'd go do that with me? Probably most of you, right? There's a reward at the end, right? And would give us time to prepare to run that 5K. Well, Paul says something that's almost the same in the book of 1 Corinthians. And what he's talking about is, and I'm going to read it to you in a minute. What he's saying is look, if you're going to run a race, run it in such a way that you'll win it. Don't just half-heartedly do it. Don't just kind of say, okay, I'm in this, but I'm just going to walk it. If you're going to do it, train and run in a way so that you'll win it. So let me read you this, and then I think it'll kind of put it in perspective this morning. So this is 1 Corinthians chapter 9. You get the right thing. This is verse 19. It says, even though I am a free man with no master, I have become a slave to all people to bring many to Christ. When I was with the Jews, I lived like a Jew to bring the Jews to Christ. When I was with those who follow the Jewish law, I too lived under that law. Even though I am not subject to the law, I did this so I could bring to Christ those who are under the law. When I am with the Gentiles that do not follow the Jewish law, I too live apart from that law, so I can bring them to Christ. But I do not ignore the law of God. I obey the law of Christ. When I am with those who are weak, I share their weakness, for I want to bring the weak to Christ. Yes, I try to find, I want you to remember these 2 words, common ground with everyone, doing everything I can to save some. I do everything to spread the good news and share it in its blessings. Listen to this passage. This is what I want you to get this morning. Don't you realize that in a race everyone runs, but only one person gets the prize? So run to win. All athletes are disciplined in their training. They do it to win a prize that will fade away. Well, we do it for an eternal prize. So I run with purpose in every step. I am not just shadow boxing. I discipline my body like an athlete, training it to do what it should. Otherwise, I fear that after preaching to others, I myself might be disqualified. When Paul wrote this to the church at Corinth, there were some things in here that really stuck out. And one of those things is, to me, where he says, so run to win. And he doesn't just linger over and say, hey, just run to win. If you'll notice at the very end of that, there's a very important little mark. It's called an exclamation mark. And what he's saying is, look, run to win. And he's making a point that we don't do this half-heartedly. That we run the race that God has set before us with all that we are. And back before this, he's saying, look, no matter who I'm with, no matter who I'm around, I will do all things so that I can just save some. I will find common ground with the people that I'm around just so they can see Christ in me and maybe, just maybe, find something that they're looking for and they don't even realize it. You see, he put this pretty clear, and he did it just in a term of being an athlete. Now, I grew up playing all kinds of sports, and I'm going to go ahead and share this story. I shared it earlier. When I lived in Watertown, Tennessee, years ago, I was trying to figure out what years it was. It was probably 77, 78, 79. I was 4th and 5th grade, I think. So somewhere through that time frame. And I got my first time on a ball field playing T-ball. How many of y'all played T-ball? You remember playing T-ball? Had kids play T-ball? You set the ball on the tee, they don't pitch it to you, you got to hit it. And I was just a young feller, but I'll never admit my coach, Chris, he probably weighed maybe 350 pounds. As a kid, he looked like he weighed 1,000, okay? This guy was 7 foot tall and 6 foot wide, it looked like, because he was a little bitty. But I wasn't that good, and we had practices, and we got in some games every now and then, but it was coming down toward the end of the season, and I'll never forget, our team was the Pirates, who had yellow jerseys with green letters. I'll never forget it. This is something that stuck with me all these years. And so I had played in just a few games, and we come up against the Tigers. The Tigers had not lost a game. They had all the best players. They were undefeated for the season, and we were just, mediocre. And I'll never forget this, because that day, not everybody showed up to play. And he come over to me and says, English, I need you to play third base. And I said, sure, coach. Where's third? This is how bad I was. And so he sticks me out there, and the game is tied. We've played the best game that we've ever played. And we get to like the 5th inning, and we only played 5, I may have been 6. But we were right at the end of the game, and we had 1 at bat left. And they had 2 people on base, and this guy that come up, he hits a home run every time he comes up. And I think, great, this is the game, this is it. And so he hits the ball, and for some reason, I just decided to jump. And I did, and guess what? I threw my glove up, and it hit in my glove. I still don't know how I did that. Still don't, but it just happened. Well, as soon as it hit my glove, the crowd went nuts because it was a third out, and it rolls out of my glove and drops right between my feet. And I didn't see it. I just heard the crowd. I was looking around, and everybody's like, the ball. And so I grabbed the ball, and I throw it to first, and I get him out. Ends the inning, we're still tied. And guess who's up to bat the very next? Me. And I get a single, and the guy behind me gets a single, and the guy behind us hits and drives us in. We beat them. It was like winning the World Series to us because they were undefeated. And the reason I'm telling you this story is at the end of the game, the coach come over and gave me the game ball. And I didn't know what to do. I had the game ball, and I was like, I didn't deserve the game ball. And he said, yeah, you did. He said, it's the best game you've played all season. And we won that game because of you. The next season, I played every single game. That ball gave me confidence. It gave me something that I did not have. And looking at that and remembering that, and I'm going to apply this spiritually, okay? Because it's something I had never done, but yet it was within me to do it, and I didn't know it. There's things that are within us that we can do for God that we don't even know about. Period. And when we find those things, and God says, look, I've given you this, go and use it. Not only did I play the next season, I played baseball all through school, high school, and college. That's how big of a profound moment that was in my life. Okay? I could not believe that I had that within me. There are people in this world who need Christ and they don't even know it. And how are they ever going to know it unless they see it in us? Odds are they're not going to pick up a Bible and read it unless there's a great catastrophe in their life. Rarely ever do you hear those stories of people going in hotels and picking up a Gideon Bible and reading it and getting saved. It happens, and yes, that's why they're there. But rarely ever, that's not the way it works. Most people who come to know Christ come to know him because somebody in their life, they saw him in them. And that's exactly what Paul is saying. Common ground. What do we have to do to find common ground with the people who need Christ the most? What does it take from within us to show Christ to others? Because if we don't do it, I'll assure you the world's not going to do it. The more I see in this world, the more I see they're pushing God just as far away from as they can. And I can't understand that. I don't understand where that's coming from. Because for many, many, many years, God has led this country. And all of a sudden there's a big push to get rid of him. That's good versus evil, people. Light versus darkness. And if we don't let that light shine within us and to carry it out into this world, the world's not going to see the light. They're going to live in darkness. And that's why things are getting worse and worse and worse so fast. It's because there's no light. So let me go back to this or reiterate on this a little bit. Look, I'm a very competitive person. My wife will tell you that if we play Scrabble, I'm competitive, okay? I mean, it's just, that's me. That's who I am. And that still, even at my age, drives me. But the older I get, it's not as bad, I don't think. But he says, run to win, okay? Run to win. What does it take from those three little words for us to be and for us to find what it takes for us to win? And I'm not talking about winning our salvation. I'm talking about winning others to him. Because inside you, God has already placed what you need to be able to do just that. It's simply when you choose to use it. When you choose to say, okay, God, I know this is inside me. This is scary. I don't know exactly what's going on around me, but I'm trusting in you. Will you help me? And let's do this. And I keep going back to that exclamation mark because Paul was serious about this. He was serious when he said it. He wants us to train just as if we wanted to win in life. And that's what he's kind of throwing out there, is we need to train for God. So how do we do that? How do we train? How do we become an athlete for God? And so, first of all, I think we've got to get in some kind of shape spiritually, right? We have to be some kind of shape of knowing who God is and what God would like from us and what we're supposed to be doing. We should have some type of prayer life and some type of devotional time for ourselves, getting in shape spiritually for God. That takes time. We couldn't do this in here and then go run that 5,000K, whatever it is. Yeah. We couldn't do that. We'd have to take months and prepare. Getting spiritually fit takes months, if not years. And it's a slow process. That's what it takes. There's another thing we like too, and I'll share with you another story because I read this in an article about Peyton Manning. You don't know who Peyton Manning is, right? Most of you? Most people in Tennessee know who Peyton Manning is. Okay. Peyton Manning is not the best quarterback to ever step on the football field physically. What makes Peyton Manning is his ability to study and learn. You realize he spends more hours watching the opponent's video than he does practicing with the team. When he steps on that field, he knows his opponent. He knows their plays. He knows how they run, their tendencies. He studies them. And what happens from him studying him, it's made him a really, 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 really good quarterback. He's got talent. I'm not taking nothing away from him. But his knowledge does something. I've never seen anything like it in my life. I've never seen anybody play ball like he does because of the knowledge. Yes, we have to be spiritually in shape, but I'm going to tell you, you've got to know what you're doing. You've got to know how to study. You've got to know how to seek God. And when you apply that, that's what changes you. That's what gives you that courage. I mean, think about it. I'm just going to throw this out here. If we know God, and we know that he wants us to be his hands and his feet, and he wants us to go and tell, his word says all those things, wouldn't it make sense that we know what we're talking about? Spiritually, you have to be in shape. You've got to know him and know his desires for your life. That takes commitment. That takes someone who says, look, I want to do this for God. There's a couple other things in that too. I had a little car. I'm telling you a bunch of stories this morning, but they're all tying in. Okay, I hope they do. A little Acura car, and I bought it. It was like, gosh, I didn't get but maybe $1,200 for it on a car lot, so you know it wasn't much of a car, okay? And I drove it for years, and when Savannah was about, I'm thinking she was 3, maybe 4 at the most, I was pastoring a church, and we were coming home, and I said, oh, we'll take the back roads tonight. Maybe we'll see some deer. And when I say back roads where we lived, it was back roads, all right? There was no cell service, rarely saw a house. I mean, it was just, and so we're driving, and the car just sputters and dies. And it's dark, and it's nothing anywhere. And so we get out of the car, and I try to make a phone call, couldn't make a phone call, and I got it out of the road, and we walked about a half a mile. She was scared half to death. There was dogs barking. I had to carry her. She was just dark. We didn't have a flashlight. We didn't have anything. And so I go to the house, and I make a phone call. My dad comes and gets us, and we left the car there. And the next day, me and my dad went back and got the car. And I worked on that car all afternoon long. Couldn't figure out what was wrong with it. It just would not start. It'd sputter and kick. I thought, let's broke a timing belt or something. My father-in-law comes over there, pops the hood on it, does something on the hood, says, try it now. Vroom. Started right up. That's aggravating when you work on something all day, ain't it? My father-in-law's been a mechanic for 30 years. He saw it before. When you spiritually build yourself and train yourself and you glean knowledge from God and you gain experience from God, when you start going out in this world, you'll say, I've heard this before. I've seen this before. And it gets easier and easier and easier. We find common ground with those who are lost. We find common ground with those who have been destroyed by a church. We find common ground with those who have just simply been hurt and walked away from God. And we let them see God in us. That's what it takes. You'll glean experience from it. There's all these things. That's who we are. God has called us to be. Another one is consistency. We have to be God's and not dabble in the world's. Because when we're consistent about who we are and what we're doing, people see that. And they want it because it's God in you. It's not nothing you're doing per se, but it's God in you. Daily, familiarize yourself. It's just like Tina's dad knowing what was wrong with that car. He's seen it before. It was consistency. Paul says, look, we're not running for some trophy. It's an eternal prize, one that will not rot, one that will not dissolve away, but something eternal. It's not for us per se. It's not something that we're just, oh, I'm going to do this so I can have eternal life. You know, if you got fire insurance when you got saved, something was wrong. Because you should have got assurance of who God was in you and what God wants from you and what He means to you. Because God is going to give you a life better here than you can ever imagine it. I say that every Sunday because it's true. What's important is, look, we're saving somebody by being genuine and real and being an athlete for God and carrying that message, letting them see Him in us. You're saving somebody from an eternity in torment to right the opposite, eternity in heaven, where there is no weeping, where there is no gnashing of teeth, where there is no eternal fire there that burns and doesn't consume. When we get serious about God and we get serious about going into this world and letting people see Christ in us and leading them that direction, when we make that choice to say, this is what I'm going to be and this is what I'm going to do, when we decide within ourselves, this is who God wants me to be, this is what He's put inside me, and I have that ability and I can do it. When we make that choice, we can walk out into this dark world and people will see Christ in you. When they see Christ in you, they're going to say, what do you have that I don't have? And you're going to get a chance to say, I have Jesus. And they're going to say, I want that. And guess what? When they receive that, they just signed their name in the Lamb's Book of Life. The angel wrote it right in there. They're going to spend eternity with God and not with the devil. See, that's important. And that's why Paul's saying, look, just to save some. Just some of them. I guarantee you this, there will not be one person in heaven that comes up and says this to you. I wish you hadn't told me about Jesus. There will not be one person that says that to you, I promise you. Matter of fact, they'll probably come lay their arms around your neck and hug you so tight and say, thank you so much for having Christ in your life and letting me see him in you so much that I wanted him. Because there is a better way. The Bible says, look, Jesus said it, I am the life, I am the truth, I am the way. Right there. That's all we should need right there. He said it. So the more I thought about this and the more I read and studied and, I cross-reference stuff and find verses that go with it, there was just, he didn't need to put anything with this because Paul said, look, you have something that is amazing that I have given you. That's what God has given you. And that is liberty. Freedom. You have the ability when you leave this room to go anywhere you want to go, to say anything you want to say, to do anything you want to do. But you also have that same ability to choose God over this world. And you have that same ability to choose Jesus and to lead others to him. You see, you have that freedom to choose. And if you choose Jesus, that's your choice. If you choose to train and to study and to choose to win, that's your choice. If you choose to run and work and share, that's your choice. Or you can choose to sit, like so many churches are doing today. At that house where we had built, that A-frame house, that pier that went out, I told you he had intended to build steps down, it looked like, to where the pond was. The pond in front of my house was pretty good size, about 3/4 of an acre, not too huge, but the great thing about this pond was our spring was right in front of it that fed the house water. Yeah, we had spring water. I loved it. But when the spring box got full enough, it overflowed and ran into the pond. It was pretty cool. That pond was crystal clear. It was beautiful because it was spring fed. There was constantly water running in, water running out. It flowed through that pond constantly. My neighbor's house, which was just across the hill there, he had 2 ponds in front of his house, and one spilled over in the other, but they were rainwater ponds, and they only got water in them when it rained. So in the summer, the water level really dropped on those ponds. And we were out in the yard one day, and he says, man, how come your pond is so clear and mine is so mucky? I said, because there's water flowing through mine. Clean water. And he kind of looked at that, and that just kind of hit me spiritually and said, that's the way Jesus is. When Jesus flows through you, it just cleans all the junk out. And it's beautiful. And when he's not, when you see it, you're just a stagnant pond. Nothing likes a stagnant pond except frogs and mosquitoes. That's it. I'd much rather like the pond I had than one he had. Do you know in the city of Jerusalem, they have uncovered, every time they tear a building down, they find something, but they've uncovered these holes that go down in the ground with steps, and they go down and there's pools of water beneath them. And then when they traveled, the Jews were really into cleanliness, and they of course they walked everywhere they went. It was dusty, they sweaty. Guess what happens? The dust sticks to them. They got dirty, right? They would go down in these pools throughout the city, and they would submerge themselves in these pools and clean themselves, and then come get dressed and come back out and go rolling down the street. And there was literally hundreds of them. And I thought to myself, the cleanliness part of it. And Jesus said about the righteousness and about the holiness of God. Wouldn't it make sense if Christ was flowing through us, the cleanliness that we have, and people would see that, not for our benefit, but for his benefit, and that they would want what we had? Because look, if you've chose Jesus this morning, you've got something more valuable than gold or silver. You've got something that money can't buy, because you've got Christ living in you, and then you have eternity. What's the one thing they don't sell at Walmart? Where's Joel was here? He's not here today, is he? What's the one thing they don't sell? You can tell me. Walmart sells everything, right? Salvation. What else? Time. You can buy a timepiece, but you can't buy time. And we're all just on a little allotted amount of time. God says, look, I have put it within you. Because if he hadn't, he wouldn't have called you. I have put it within you, the ability to go and do. And Paul says, look, whatever we got to do just to save some. He says, I never forsake the law. I never forsake what Christ taught me. But whatever I have to, I'll become all things to all men in order to save some. What if you were in that some? What if it was you in that group? Would it be valuable to you that somebody took time and effort to share? Time and effort to be Christ-like in front of you? Time and effort to make you wonder, okay, what's going on with this? And that train of thought. What would it be worth to you, that person that actually took the time to lead you to Christ? The friend that prayed with me in that camper floor has moved off to Kentucky, and we're friends on Facebook, and I talked to him a little bit. And while we were growing up, we were high school buddies, and his dad had I can't remember what year it was, but it was an Oldsmobile Cutlass Supreme, a lot like Joe's. And he was on Facebook the other day with his daughter, and I commented, I said, I told him about Joe's car, and I said, every time I see that car, I think of you. And he said, that's funny. And I said, but you were the one who prayed with me. You were the one who invited me. You were the one who got saved, and I saw a change in you because I knew you weren't the same, and I was curious, and I wanted what you had. Think about that for a minute. Think about it. It may not happen today, and it may not happen this week, but when you are that visible reflection of Christ in your workplaces, in your schools, in wherever you are, somebody's going to see it. And if you're prepared to be that, you're going to be blessed for it. Because I feel blessed that he took the time out for me. So who are you going to take the time out for? It's your choice. We can sit or we can do. It's as simple as that. That T-ball team that I was on, it's one of those memories you never forget. And I think the reason why I'll never forget that of all those instances in my life, and looking back on it, I didn't at the time, but looking back on it, I realized that within myself was more than what I realized or what I thought. And I'm not a betting man, but I just about bet that a lot of y'all are the same way. There's more inside you that you can do than what you think you can. And this morning I'm going to ask you to do this. We're going to do something a little different. We're going to have an invitation, but I'm going to ask you to stand. And as we stand, we're going to pray in just a moment. But as we stand, I want you to think back through your life at times that God has given you opportunities that you took. That you actually, okay, God, I see this, and you stepped out and you grabbed those opportunities. And I want you to ask yourself, is right now one of those opportunities? Is right now a time where I can come back and just get on my knees before God and just let him have his way with me? And maybe, just maybe, you'll see, and it's just like getting that game ball. It'll be a reminder of, wow, I can do this. It's not too much. So I'm going to ask you to stand and pray with me this morning. Father in heaven, we're going to take the next few moments and just listen to your voice. And Father, then we'll shortly we'll close and go home. But Father, this time in this room this morning, this short time that we've come in just to worship you, it doesn't need to stop here. It needs to go on and on and on. And Father, whatever you have to do, Father, to speak to our hearts, whatever you have to do just to grab a hold of us, Father, I pray now that you can do that. Father, that you would speak so clearly right now to hearts and minds in this room. And that, Father, those in the world that are living in darkness, they need to see the light. And, Father, if we can carry that light into the darkness, if we could just a torch, Father, whatever we have, to give them hope, let us decide to do that right now. No matter the adversity, no matter what all else is going on, no matter what everybody else is doing, but, Father, just us. Just between you and me and you and them. And, Father, we would take the time this morning to listen to your voice. We renew our commitment, Father. We just become workhorses for you. And that more people would come to know you because we chose to. Father, you are amazing, and without you we could not do anything. But, Father, through you, I know that there's nothing we can't do. Father, maybe we just need courage and strength. But we desperately need you. Father, help us now. This altar's open this morning if you'd like to just take one step out. Get on your knees before God. If you'd like just to hear his voice or just to kneel before him in honor.